Majority of Korean settlers here in Riverside came from Hawaii, and where official Korean immigration to the United States began on January 13, 1905, with arrival of 102 Korean immigrant laborers who landed in Hawaii. Between 1903 and 1905, approximately a little over 7,000 Korean immigrants came to Hawaii as sugar plantation laborers. Suffering from low wages and harsh working conditions, some sought better life here in mainland United States. And a little bit less than 1,000 Korean immigrants came to mainland, initially in San Francisco, and many of them, it turns out, came to Riverside, California. And this is SS Gallic, which first 102 Korean immigrants came to Hawaii with this particular ship. And this is a photograph of H. Lee picking oranges in upland nearby downtown Riverside in 1915. And it shows how the Korean immigrants were working at the time. Dosan Ahn Chang Ho, who established the Pachappa Camp, the first Koreatown in the United States, this map shows the journey of his itinerary. From Korea, he went to Japan, and from Japan, he stopped by in Hawaii. And on the way to Hawaii, he saw beautiful ocean with mountain, and that's the reason why his pen name is Dosan, which means island mountain. And so from Hawaii, unfortunately, he took a wrong ship. Initially, he's supposed to go to San Francisco, and yet this particular ship went to Vancouver. And from Vancouver, he came down to Seattle, and finally on October 14, 1902, he landed in San Francisco. So by the time he landed in San Francisco, he was broke because he spent all his money because he took a wrong ship from Hawaii to Vancouver. And this is his passport. And the reason why I know this itinerary is because I discovered the San Francisco Chronicle newspaper interview of Ahn Chang Ho and his wife. And this particular issue was December 7, 1902. So it was, very fortunate for me to find this particular interview of Ahn Chang Ho and his wife. This is a photograph, a portrait of Helen Ahn. Her Korean name is Lee Hae-ryun, and she lived in Riverside, and this family portrait was taken in 1906 while they were residing here in Riverside. And this is a very famous photograph of Dosan Ahn Chang Ho. This photo was taken around 1920s. And at Pachappa Camp consists of about 20 wooden structures, but there's no running water, no electricity. It was a shack, and it was very poor working condition, living conditions. And the women were required to wear a traditional white Korean dress called hanbok. This is replica of this traditional dress of Korean women who wore a white hanbok at Pachappa Camp. And this is another very famous photograph of Dosan Ahn Chang Ho picking oranges in Riverside in 1904. We knew of this photograph, but we did not really know he established a community, and it served as a mecca of Korean independence movement during early 1900s. And this photograph is another photograph of Dosan Ahn Chang Ho, among other citrus farm labor here in Riverside downtown. And so this really shows not only Korean immigrants, but also other white and and Latino, and possibly African American laborers, a kind of multi-ethnic labor force of citrus industry at the time. And the Pachapa camp was more than labor camp. It had family consisting of women and children, amongst others. And this designation was done by the city of Riverside. City of Riverside designated site of Pachapa camp as a first point of cultural interest. And I'm very proud the city designated it. And inside the Pachapa camp, they had school and Sunday services. And at the Korean Presbyterian Mission, this is Korean language school with students. And this is a Korean mission also inside the Pachapa camp. By the way, this Korean mission was affiliated with Riverside Calvary Presbyterian Church, and they were officially recognized as a Korean mission. And this is kind of a note from Violet Catherine Kim's collection. This is another unknown person who took a photograph with a dog, but we don't know who. Unfortunately, we don't know the identity of the person. And this is another collection we found from a Violet Catherine Kim collection. And this is a photograph taken at the Gage Canal. And I believe this photo was taken in 1911. The third Korean National Association of North American Convention was held here in Riverside from 1911, November 23rd to December 4th, 1911. And at this convention, they passed 21 resolutions of articles of governance. And based on that particular article, I argue that it was the origins of a democratic republicanism of Shanghai-based Korean provisional government, which declared a democratic republicanism in 1919, and later on served as model basis for forming a modern Republic of Korea in 1948. And this is Violet Catherine Kim as a young woman, his brother, Johnny Kim. By the way, many Korean young men and women served during World War II in the Army, Navy, as well as Air Corps. And it shows the Ahn Chang Ho and his son's eldest son, as well as the youngest son and eldest daughter, Dosan Ahn. Dosan Ahn became the first woman gunnery officer of U.S. Navy. Which is an amazing accomplishment. And his eldest son, Philip Ahn, later became a famous movie star. And he's the first Asian American actor to receive star Walk of Fame in Hollywood Boulevard. And his youngest son, Ralph, is still alive. He also is an actor. And Philip Ahn is most famous for Master Khan in Kung Fu. And those who grew up in the 70s, the Kung Fu was the #1 TV show at the time, and everyone recognized him. But he's the eldest son of Dosan Ahn Chang Ho.
Do not the ancients say, rank and reward have no appeal for a man one with himself?
And this is another photo of Philip Ahn when he was a child in 1910, which means he was residing here in Riverside. And we have a lot more information, but this is an autobiography of Philip Ahn, and that's a quiet odyssey written by Mary Peck Lee, who described what it was like to grow up inside the Pachapa camp. So there are many other things that are written about the Pachapa camp. And the reason why I argue Pachappa Camp is the first Koreatown in the United States is because it was not simply a camp, labor camp, but it was a community. It was consist of women and children, family-based, which was very unusual at the time. The Chinatown and Manila town was known as a bachelor society. Unlike Chinatown and Manila town, this Pachappa Camp was a family-based community which had a discussion group, which has a wedding ceremony, birthday parties, and independence activities. And therefore, Pachappa Camp was a truly enjoyable my research project, perhaps one of the most gratifying research projects that I was ever involved in 30 years of my academic career. Thanks for visiting Pachappa Camp. Thank you.